Hey everyone, it's Donna here again, inviting you to today's self-love reunion speaker, and I am super excited. First, I invite you to hit the subscribe button, and just to remind everyone, this self-love reunion was put together because 1 in 2 women across the globe actually have more self-doubt than self-love. This reunion is here to help transform and help people get into that space of deeper self-respect, because love is the most powerful force in existence. I'll see you on the inside. All right. Hello again, everyone. It's Donna here with the Art of Self-Love Reunion, here to help you revitalize the human spirit. And that comes from many ways, working on self-love within ourselves and outside of ourselves. We do this in so many ways, and our next guest, the guest that I'm going to be sharing some time with today, is Brooke Raby, and she is the founder of Woofpack, that is created to help individuals and their dogs understand each other. Now, for those of you that don't have pets, stay tuned, because Brooke actually has a really unique gift in helping those who have neighbor dog maybe issues, people who have friends or family with dogs, people who don't understand dogs. She actually can help you as well to understand how to relate with pets, animals in general, right? So let's get into Brooke's background. Brooke, since an early age, she had a special bond with dogs. Her family actually had bred dogs, and her mother showed dogs. So she had an early connection and an exposure through experience with dogs in particular. She was just in love with them, and she even remembers at the age of 7, she would take multiple dogs out for walks, go off leash, and play a variety of games and do different training activities. And dogs almost became her best friend, she says. So, but like most people, Brooke headed off into career world, and she went into the finance industry. Finally, in 2017, she kind of got that, I really need to do something that I'm passionate about, something that I love and want to connect with, and bring more of that joy into her life. And that's when she actually discovered boarding kennels. And in that work, she delved right into the training and the bonding and the pack walking again. And a short year later, she opened Woofpack, and that whole passion was full on reignited into this new profession, right? Profession for parents of dogs, the focus. However, again, working with the individual. So Brooke's highly connected with dogs because of her work, and this actually has opened up more of an energetic understanding and a bonding that she teaches with her dogs, to the dogs, to the owners, and also extends that beautiful gift to those who have pets around, who run into pets in the park, walking down the street, because again, we are surrounded by them. So let's get into this. I mean, I love Brooke. Thank you, first of all, for being here. This is fabulous. I don't have a dog, but I'm super
That's all
excited.
right.
I'm super excited to have you here. I grew up sort of more farming, so we had a dog, but it was always the dogs outside. Unless it was a really cold night, the dog wasn't allowed in the house. So we still had some compassion, right? But I guess because we weren't on the farm at that point, but the dog could eat the meal in the house, but then outside it went, right? So I have many different stories around dogs. I just certainly don't own one myself. And I think the part that I love is you have this calling card, shall we say, that you are a dog walker extraordinaire. Love it. But I'd actually like to think that you might have a bit of this dog whisperer in you, because people that understand energy and energetics, which is the world we kind of live in, you kind of share that as well. So totally looking forward to having this conversation, especially because everything in this energy world is upon us. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention to everyone that you have an assistant, and more like the leader of the pack, shall we say, and your secret weapon. So let's start with your secret weapon in this world and then get into what it is that you do for your clients and then how we can bring that into those of us that don't have pets. So share with us your secret weapon.
I do. I love the secret weapon concept. Like that's a great way of describing my assistant. So I work with my assistant Kipper the dog. So this is my dog, and I would say she was even part of what got me working with dogs, what got me started with dogs. Actually making money as opposed to doing stuff for fun when I was 7 years old.
What kind of dog?
She's a golden doodle. It's a golden retriever and poodle mix. They're a fantastic breed. Not that there isn't a fantastic breed out there, but yes, I'm very pleased. I grew up with golden retrievers, so this was hit home.
So we might see the dog walk through, perhaps. Don't know if it's and because I've seen a picture of your dog. I've seen your dog, and there's not a big smile on the dog. That doodle dog is kind of the dog that just sort of stands there.
She is an aloof sort of animal. I mean, dogs really do take after their owners. Like if you dogs mirror their owners for sure and fit themselves into how you function, like as a pack, as a family. So for me, having started working with dogs and whatnot, she's definitely the alpha, second in line to me. But yeah, she does when other people come into the house or whatever the case may be, like she is what she is. You can approach, you can say hi, but she is, she does her own thing.
I love it.
Definitely her own dog.
I love it. But I think that breed to me, though, is one that isn't necessarily the overexcitable in the same way, but maybe that's right, like that breed. Because I know other people and I've seen that dog around, and I often think, oh, there's no pizza.
And you can definitely pick up on personality traits on different breeds that you have. The golden retrievers are typically very friendly, will approach anyone, will almost go home with anyone, kind of dog. But poodles are extremely loyal. So as much as if you have a straight poodle, they are a very high energy dog, whereas goldens can be a little lower, calmer. So I've got a good mix, I would say. She's pretty chill. She's not very excitable, but that's what makes her the perfect companion and my perfect partner to work with. Just how she functions with the dogs, how she trains, teaches, keeps them in line. So for example,
let's get into that. Let's get into what you do and how you work and then how she comes into all of this. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give you sort of a typical day or what it is that we do, essentially, my first conversation with a potential client or parent and their pup would usually involve an initial meet and greet. So whether that's over a Zoom call or in person, I do like to do a first and foremost introduction to the person. What this allows for is for me to sort of gather, what are the issues that you as the parent or person is struggling with? Because like I mentioned, dogs are mirrors. So it gives me a hint into what the dog is struggling with. Now, usually they present it as, here's what the dog's struggling with, and therefore I know what the person's struggling with. But it's all about, each and every dog is an individual and each and every person is an individual. So it is a problem-solving situation at every new meeting, I would say. So my first initial meet and greet, like I said, is to assess the situation, meet your dog, sort of see what it is that you guys are struggling with. And from there, we create sort of a training package. I give you homework to work on, different things, and it can be anything from just getting you and your dog to engage and sort of create that bond, because believe it or not, a lot of individuals do struggle with bonding with their dogs. They've got a high energy dog, or they just don't know where their place is in the pack. And this gives me the opportunity to sort of set that straight. So we do that initially, and then from there, whether it's training sessions one-on-one with, you know, the person and the dog together, or is it I work with the dog personally, so taking them out, I would go pick it up at your house, take your dog out for a pack walk or an individual walk, again, depending on the situation. And then giving you the homework. So I take videos throughout the actual session if you're not present, and then I would send that to you or post it afterwards, and you can follow along. Like, this is for the week, this is what I have to focus on, and the exercises or games I'm going to play with my dog.
Wow. So then let's talk though about, you know, you said sometimes you will, they might need individual or they're with a pack. If they need some individual, is it an easy enough transition that you would bring them into the pack? And again, we're speaking for those who are in your city, in the Ottawa area that you might work with.
That's right.
And we'll talk later about how all of this transitions for those of for those who aren't in this city that you're working in. But you know, how does that work? Because I think dogs naturally want to, like humans, connect, right? So talk a little bit about that, because, you know, yes, individuals, we all need some of this private one-on-one stuff, but then we need to get into the group so that we understand how we relate. So it's the same thing, I suspect.
Yeah, absolutely. So and typically after that one-on-one initial meeting, we do work, usually your dog ends up joining on pack walks. I do let that sort of be up to the individual and how their level of comfort. I have had some people that just, you know, maybe they've never had a dog off leash before, and it's hard for some people to wrap their heads around that. So I do tailor it for sure to each individual, but it's also about, you know, expanding that person's confidence and their trust in their dog. At the end of the day, if you don't trust your dog, like they're not going to perform. You have to believe in your animal and what you're doing and have that level of confidence for them to succeed. So yeah, typically after a meet and greet, I follow up and I'm doing, you know, the weekly or bi-weekly, whatever the case may be. There's not a specific structure that I forced anyone into. It's sort of what people are comfortable with. But in most cases, I end up taking the dog on a weekly basis for pack walks. I mean, we do everything from, they get the socialization, which right now is very much required for dogs. So they get that aspect of it. They get to understand where their place is in a pack. They get to understand how to act, what's expected of them, and who to trust at the end of the day, which is huge.
So I got to go here because I've seen people. So are you one of these women that I would see walking down the street that would have like a leash with like 5 or 9 dogs there, or you have them all in the car and you, like, once you get to the park that's off leash, you just say, okay, everybody out?
Yes, I am. I don't even typically take your leash with me. I carry one leash with me. I do use long lines because for the initial, you know, session or so, they're fantastic for training purposes. But I drive up to your house. I load your dog in with all the other dogs in the vehicle, drive them from point A to point B. We pop the trunk and have at her. The have at her is not a free for all. Like I said, there is structure in a sense. Yeah. We are working as a pack. They have to understand and abide by the rules, the boundaries and the limitations that I set as the pack leader from day one.
So my head is going back to my childhood. There were 6 of us children and our parents. So are you speaking the rules to the dogs while you're driving? Conceptually, as much as you're not saying it energetically, right?
Yes.
Right? Yes. Like I'm laughing. I'm like, oh my God, it must be the exact same, because so why I brought up the, you know, watching somebody walk with all these dogs, sometimes I feel like the dogs are pulling them right along. And for an individual, and I can see, I'm not afraid of dogs, but I can see how people can look to the dog walker and be like, do you even have them under control? Because that's a lot of weight and a lot of power if the walker is not, if you are not in control, right? And I say control, the alpha, right?
Absolutely. And in that instance, when you're seeing the dog walking the person, that person is not in control. They might have the ability or the strength to sort of hold and rein a dog in and not let them go any further, perhaps. But from that mentality for the dog in that particular walk, that dog is leading the walk. They get to go wherever they want and do whatever they please. Not the ideal way to walk a dog. I also just can't imagine being dragged around the street by a dog.
Well, and that's okay. That is your profession. But then you also spoke earlier about Kipper. So what? Kipper's sort of on the periphery when they all get out. And she's like,
so
y'all know, I'm gonna nip you. What do they do?
They do. I mean, dogs. She's fantastic. I mean, she is the one that does part of the communication. I'll give you an example. For dogs that hump. I mean, that's a dominance thing in many cases, and that's their way of sort of sorting things out in the pack. If a dog were to come and hump Kipper, and I come over and protect Kipper or push the dog off, the dog didn't really learn much from that experience. Dogs learn from dogs far better than they do from humans because it's a direct, like that line of communication is already completely open. They understand precisely. Whereas with us, they're sometimes guessing a little bit. I mean, if you don't know how to communicate with the dog, it's, messages can get mixed for sure. So in that instance, Kipper is the one who does the nipping. She tells them off. She pushes them up, whatever it takes to get her message across that she is second in line and you will never attempt that again on her. Yeah. And they don't. It's it's utterly astounding to watch. They get one try at it and it will never happen again. Same idea in the vehicle. When we're loading, when I've got different dogs in the car, I can reach back and sort of, I can say different things, but it counts. It means more again, where Kipper's doles out or essentially, tells people how to act in the vehicle. She doesn't like to be stepped on. She's dogs should be self-aware of one another, of their space, of like a well-rounded, good dog is calm, collected, and not acting a fool in the car.
Like a well-rounded human.
It is exactly that.
Exactly. I laugh because so I bring this up and I love having you part of this self-love reunion because my own mother, so she's in her 70s and she, has this not fond relationship with the four-legged, as she calls it. And I'm often like, Mom, that's coming from you. No, it's not. And I'm like, and then whatever. There's all these stories that unfold from everyone else. And I'm like, you know what? You'll need to come to those terms. I'm not here because you're not in the space where you would want to necessarily hear it from me in that regard. But I think as we're all starting to learn more and more and being open into this, what is this energy field everyone talks about? What is this vibration? It's the same thing, right?
100%. If you have a fear or if you do not like the dog, energetically, they feel that. They understand that immediately. They'll take advantage of that. If you're fearful of them, you are now, you're a lesser. You've gone from what should be the human at the top of the pack to your bottom rung here now. If you're afraid, well, you got to go to the back of the line. We need someone who's calm, confident, who's going to take charge and take care of the pack up at the front. So unfortunately, yes, in that instance, the human is no longer alpha in that particular way. And it can certainly cause some confusion
and I think so let's go here for a little bit because we want to bring everyone that's that doesn't have a dog into this scenario as well. I know another thing for myself. I go out for my walk every day, and oftentimes, and it happened again the other morning, out for my walk, and it's my happy place. I mean, nature is, once people all learn, and you're in it with the dogs all the time. So we definitely have the love of that and the necessity for it in our lives. But I'm out for a walk, and this happens so often. Owner in front, across the street and the dog just starts barking and I'm like, I'm right into the, I know, I hope you have a good day too. Like I'm like right talking to them energetically. I don't, and sometimes I do, I'll talk to, oh my God, what's the dog's name? Da, da, da. And the parents, the owners, the parents, they're like chugging at, and I'm like, and I just want to say it's, and sometimes I do, it's okay. I'm like, I got dog vibe in me. I'm like, I'm good, right? Like I understand the dog. And they, parents that are just, I can see the anger. I can see that it's the dog. Leave them alone. I'm trying to teach you a lesson. And I don't come from the space of, ha, 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 I'm not on a leash and you are, right? Like that's not where I'm coming from. I'm just like, oh my God, how exciting. You've been sleeping inside for the last 10 hours and you're out for your walk and your pee and now you're getting tugged at to be good, right? Like it's this entire, like I just sit in this fascinating spot. And again, the other day it happened that I literally, I'm like, okay, that person, you know what, Donna, just let it go, because I would love to just play with the dog. But I'm like, okay, I have to literally, I hone my own energy. I'm like, I look down, I turn, I'll kind of look up. I see the dog still looking at me. I'm like, okay, not yet. And I'm going to go. And I'm like, I have to go across the street. I have to stop for a bit, wait until they get ahead of me out of respect for the dog that's being yanked and the person that doesn't understand. Now, these are scenarios. I certainly am sure that, there are dogs that need different attention, whatever else. However, I'm just fascinated because I always want to just say, it's okay. Like that dog can jump all over me. I don't, because I don't have that fear gene, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're not afraid and you like the attention, you like seeing the dogs. It's a welcome. And when you don't have, I mean, this is very common for people who are dog people or pet people in general and don't have one at home to have a dog acknowledge you, to be able to go out to get some cuddles and let it crawl all over you. It's a really nice feeling.
Is it okay for us to do that, or should we really be like, no, right? Because again, don't have a dog, so I want to respect it, and that's why I'm like, okay, stop, Donna, because you don't know what that scenario is going to lead to.
And there it is. Yes. So it typically, we should not be, again, that dog is traveling with their pack. So as a pack with their leader, the person walking the dog, perhaps there's a stroller, maybe there's multiple dogs, whatever the case may be.
So that you're calling a pack, not just you and 7 dogs that happen to be out. So the pack is just the family unit.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Your family, whoever is in your household is a pack. It might just be, in this particular instance, it's Kipper and I in our house. That is my pack. Now I go out and I invite others into my pack when we go and we do different things and we're working and whatnot. But if you try to imagine that each individual family, dog, person, whatever the case, like if it's, like I said, dog and just person, or if there's a whole family, they're functioning as a pack. So you walking up or getting the dog's attention, or, because you absolutely can. I used to do it all the time too, like focus your energy on a dog and get they'll turn. They feel that energy coming from, because you sent out that exciting vibe, that like whatever it is, you're exuding that, pay attention to me. They pick up on that for sure. So my recommendation is don't do that.
And I do that to humans too. So I'm like, sorry, everybody, dogs, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if you are so inclined and you want to approach that dog, by all means, you don't have to cower in a corner and not do that. But what you want, you would go up to the owner and you would ask. I mean, because that's the leader of the pack. So go to the alpha person, that individual, and you would essentially ask, can I say hi to your dog? Right. And from there, I'll actually walk you through how to approach and go through all of that aspect of it. But yeah, you just sticking your nose into a family unit, quite literally, and saying, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. That's what's happening.
I get that. So for those that know me, I get that. And for those that need that lesson, there it is, right? When you're sticking your nose in,
you're approaching strangers essentially and looking for them to climb on you. And
I will, but I also understand energetics as well from a different respect. And this isn't a tisk tisk. It's again, I'm out just loving on my own life, right? Like I'm out there, I'm not out there. I don't go out saying any dog find me. Now my energy is left there. So I have to remember to go back and clear. That's a whole nother story for people that need to understand energy and learn about energy. Talk to me in a different realm, like in a different space. But I'm not actually going out with an intention.
no,
I just know that I've got that happy morning gene going on because I go out in nature with that intention. Fill me up. I'm going to smell on breath. I'm going to touch the trees. Anything natural that's happy, I welcome it. So I don't, right? So I do want to respect that the owner, right, woke up and they had the miserable night and everything else, and the dog is just happens to be, So I'm always like, oh, no. That's when it then, because as soon as they see me, that is when my switch goes, I know, I want to play with you too, but they won't let us. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation would be quite literally, and this is something that I had to curb years and years ago, was as opposed to sending energy to the dog and love to the dog, start with their human. So if you want to say hi, spread that to the human, and obviously get your dog fixed if you can, because that was the main goal. But if you started and introduced and went to the human and started like, hi, can I say hi to your dog? That instant connection with that individual and person, and the fact that you approach that way, like you have just trickled love down in so many different ways. It's astounding. So yeah, there's your.
And I get that. It's when they're the head of me and the dog's still behind because the leash is long back, right? So I'm like, I get it. And often, yeah. But when I feel the tug, like my whole energetic field feels that, and I'm like, they don't want to say good morning to Donna, right? Like I'm just like, okay, right? Because it's all good. It's just it's interesting, and I think it's these kinds of scenarios that people right away, us out walking in parks, whatever, you sort of get with this. The dog runs at you because they're throwing balls, and then everybody wants to freak out. Where me, I'm like, the dog can come to me. Where the next person, they either have been bit by a dog, they've been not had a good relationship with a dog, and that all carries. But it is teaching humans that dogs are just like us. They could have something go on too, which is causing that. But if you're so fearful of dogs, there's something that you need to also work on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So dogs are, people have different perspectives. Dogs are pretty harmless, but I do just want to touch as well on, so that people understand that whole following and a dog looking back. So if I'm walking ahead and Kipper is following me behind, and you're behind her perhaps, whether she's on a leash or not, she is supposed to be, her job in that scenario as a pack with me is to be following me, to be focused on me. And like I said, I'm the one who suggests that we turn here, that we visit this person, that we acknowledge someone who passed. That's my business. You know what? A fire truck went past. That's not our business. When you're working with a dog in a pack, they are supposed to be focused and not paying attention to other things that cross their path. So, and to delve, just a little bit further into that, is that dogs, in the same way that as people, we get, let's say you've had a bad situation, you just had a really bad day, and everything sort of is up to here right now. I've had one thing after another not go my way, and I'm now up to here. And then I get home and the dog has destroyed something. Now I'm just boiling over. So I lose it. Dogs function that same sort of way, where if they've not had positive interactions to work on and build it, let's say a dog's had a bad day. A dog tried to bite him. A person was mad at him. Someone crossed their path and was scared of them and like shooed them off. And it's just one thing after another after another. And then Donna, who's super friendly, wants to come say hi. If they're already up here, and let's say you didn't approach properly or whatever the case is, you hovered over, you spooked them, you know, whether they nip or not, they might just boil over.
Right.
So that dog is probably a really friendly dog. There's, you know, you're a really friendly person. They did not mean to cause any harm. They were just at that boiling point that toppled them over. People and dogs function very similarly in that sense. So that's why it is sort of the owner's job, the pack leader's job, to create as many positive interactions as possible and sort of mitigate those things. Like, no, we're going to ignore whatever it is that we're walking past. We're not engaging. We're going to ignore. Stay focused on me. I'll let you know when it's a good enough experience or a positive thing that you can go and say hi to.
Right. And it's leading me to other stories because I have family members who have had dogs, and I'm thinking of one in particular. And often it was like the dog, you know, the leash is, well, you know, but the extended leash, right? And you just leave it loose and off the dog goes, and it's on the leash, but it's there, it's here, it's there, it's there. And then when the owner, aka family member, decides that they don't like that the dog went off to chew at something it saw on the ground 5 feet ahead, they yank on it, right? Because it's the dog's fault. Where you're in fact saying, and I'm using that language, but you're in fact saying, because they're then allowing the dog to take charge without any charge, like without any control.
Yeah.
Unless that dog has learned, like Kipper, as a for instance, because I don't know if you let the dog go ahead of you if you're on the street or whatever, but in that same instance, where if they don't have enough composure to still know that you're the alpha, where I often look at it, it became then these triggers where I'm the alpha and they try to take that alpha role back, put it onto the dog who's like this big, and it's like, how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's there's a couple of different things in there in particular. I know people like flexi leads for that sort of freedom and for that freedom. I don't knock them necessarily because I see why people use them, but it's confusing to a dog. If you have provided that, let's say it's a 20-foot flexi line, you've got it at the end of 20 feet for however long. And so the dog thinks, okay, this is my, you know, I've got 20 feet. This is where I'm allowed to go. They get accustomed. I mean, they quite literally, you can teach them sort of this is the area and how far you're basically allowed to go. They figure that out pretty quickly. If you shorten that and drag them back out of nowhere, they just can't comprehend, well, I thought I had 20 feet and now I'm in trouble and I've only got 5 feet. And I'm just, it's very confusing for them. You always
they got slapped, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like a kid. And like when we look at, we're imprinted all the time as adults and we're trying to figure these things out. Well, you're doing the same thing with your dog. You're slapping them, and you're not even realizing you're plugging it on this. You're hitting them around the corner in the kitchen, you know, their dog bowl. Like there's a respect to have a pet.
Absolutely.
Like, I think really that's what you're saying. It's not just to have a pet. It's not to take the full benefit of cuddles and all of that, which is fabulous, but it's conscious petting, like conscious parenting.
That's a great
conscious relationships, right? You don't need your partner.
You should patent that. That's really good.
I don't even know what I said. I'm recording, so there you go. I don't know what I said, but
yeah, you're absolutely right though. Conscious petting is the term you use, and I think that's utterly hilarious. But that is quite literally that is it. So what I teach people and what the message I try to convey day one, instant one, is that your dog, there's basically really two things in the world that will create a unconditional bond and trust is setting the trust. So letting your dog know who to trust, and that's me. Everything you need to know and worry about goes through me. Just trust me implicitly. And then setting the expectation.
You say me, the owner.
Me being the owner. Yeah,
No,
whoever,
you're the owner of the pack of the dog who owns the dog, not Brooke as the person that comes.
not Brooke as the individual, the actual dog owner, you need to be, you know, that trust factor for your dog. In so many different instances, I mean, you'll have a dog that listens to you, that looks to you. I mean, that bond, if they trust you, that unconditional love that you're looking for typically as a pet owner will be tenfold. Um, and like I said earlier, just having that believing in your dog as well. You know, it's a two-way street. They will trust you. If you believe in them, they'll do what you want. Now you obviously have to set the expectation for that. So that is sort of the two are married, trust and setting expectations for your dogs. If you've got those two in place, you will have the best relationship with your dog ever. And I mean, really, if you kind of think about it, that could be used in most relationships that involve people as well.
Well, but this is what I'm thinking, you know, as you're saying it, it just so many, oh my God, oh wow, wow, wow.
So much of the dog psychology and how we function with animals is so transferable to individuals and people and relationships. It's not even funny.
Well, and this is where, you know, you dog whispering and mirroring, right? You're helping the owner, the human, mirror, so the dog mirrors them, right? And I'm like, this whole concept of mirroring, sure, there's people that are going to be listening to it, there's people in the world that know it, but so many people are only on the cusp of understanding how much everything is literally a mirror of you. So you see where you're on, you're off, you need to adjust, you need to whatever, right? And that's that brilliant fluidity of life when we get into the flow of what's going on. I'm curious though, you know, and again, I can only really come from scenarios that I've had in my life where is it one person in the family then becomes the leader of the pack, or just similarly like a mother and a father, whether that's two women in a family, whatever. I'm not, you know, sort of
like a parental
mom and dad and
figure.
3 kids and the dog, right? Like, but in that same scenario, if there are mom, dad, and 3 kids and the dog, there still has to be that same type of structure, right? That you would then have in your own family unit. So for those that are listening, if you don't have a good family relationship, it could, I am not a psychologist, I am not here to have that argument, but it could very well be that the pet is truly there helping you to understand what's going on in your own family. Like you're literally your own family, right?
1,000,000%. You can try reading your dog and sussing out what your own issues are based on that. Yeah, that's a very interesting, and you're absolutely right. It isn't an individual in the family. It's the family members, so the people that are your alpha. So parents up top as the alphas, and then you've got your middle of the pack, so children, however many that is. If you've got a litter of children, all of those children are that above the dog, the alpha. So they are still setting the rules, boundaries, and limitations and whatnot, and following through with that. I mean, consistency in a family unit is key. But you would want that with your children as well. So again, it's that same sort of how you would like to function as a family. But yes, your alpha is the entire family. So every human being that resides in your home comes before the dog.
Right. So then let's talk about puppies. Everybody loves puppies. You know, and how do people bring a puppy home, you know, how do you work with that sort of scenario? Because that everything is playful and new, and that's really where you need to set a lot of these boundaries probably going on in, but how quickly can that happen as well?
It is, and it's funny because a lot of puppies are playful and fun, and most people sort of allow that for the first little bit, year sometimes even, like, oh, it's just a puppy, you know. The puppies get away with murder because they're cute, but really and truly, you should be day one day one, minute one, you should be starting off and setting the expectations and the trust factor. So when I'm working with someone who starts with a puppy, or who's gotten a puppy, I do encourage people to sort of set those rules and limitations and all the boundaries and everything from moment one. It's less confusing for the dog later on, and they do learn very quickly and from a very early age. I mean, if you think about puppies when they're born like their eyes are closed, their ears are closed. So dogs learn first and foremost from their nose. I mean, when they're born with only their nose to find their way to their mother to eat. So learn with their nose. Secondly is with the eyes. That's the next thing that opens up after a couple weeks. And then the ears, they start to grow and you can sort of see that. You can literally see from the very beginning, their ears are closed. Anyway, puppies are the cutest. But that being said, they do, like I said, they have to learn the instant they're born. They have to figure out how to find their way by sniffing, smelling, that sort of thing to their mother. They have to sort out how things function in their own pack, within their own litter mates, with the mother. I mean, they are teaching one another from a very early on age how to play properly together, how to respect one another's space. Puppies nip a lot because they teeth. So in a litter of puppies, they have their own forms of communication. And if you mimic these forms, I mean, I get people all the time like, oh, my puppy nips and I just can't get enough of it. You want to mimic that sound that they make, and your puppy will learn instantly that that's not acceptable. Now, that's setting an expectation. So to sort of gain that trust aspect of it too, that is another area that I suggest that people start working on immediately. So trying to know beforehand, I mean, paying attention, puppies have to pee all the time. So your dog just woke up from a nap, they just fed, they just finished playing, whatever it is, the instant they're done that activity, you should anticipate their needs. Take them outside, let them out for a pee. They might be hungry. I mean, trying to anticipate the dog's needs, which is actually super simple if you've done any little bit of research for when you're getting a puppy. But you have just set up that I'm the person that you can trust. I anticipate your needs for you. I'm here for you. From day one, you are your dog's hero. And that's really and truly where you want to be, where you want to, feel confident enough as the alpha, as the whatever the case may be. Imagine that was a relationship where you were someone's hero all of the time. It's a really great feeling. Yeah, that sort of sets it up for the puppies, I guess. I mean, there's a whole boatload of rules and things, but from day one, moment one, absolutely, you should start setting up the expectations and how you want things to function in your home, and level that trust out as soon as possible.
So then what happens, because pets aren't wearing diapers like kids, right? So what happens, because you often hear, and again, stories, whatever, I sort of radar from what I've heard with people with pets, but it's like, okay, the puppy peed, right? So how do you reprimand that? Do you stick the nose in the urine? I mean, you hear crazy things, and then there'd be other people that, oh my God, you're not respecting it's a sentient being and whatever. And I get all that. I'm not going anywhere with this other than how do you look at that as a scenario? Because, that's where, let's say you're the person, it's up to here. Now that happened. Now you've just this whole ripple effect instead of, hold on. So what do we do with the dog that peed on the floor?
Yeah, totally. And I've heard all different kinds of ways of training or doing and dealing with things. And, everyone's got their own sort of concept. For me, from the psychological aspect of it, rubbing a dog's nose in pee doesn't get the message across. If you to curb a behavior, now, I mean, with pee it's a little bit different, but to curb a behavior, you need to mark it in the instant that it happens, or to get a behavior, you have to mark it. So for example, if I got a puppy and I want to teach it to sit, if the instant it sat all by itself, I said yes, and then gave it a treat, you might start to find that it'll start sitting and use, yes, mark that. So you're just marking the action,
Okay.
then you're rewarding it by giving it a treat and saying, like, this is something that I like. So rewarding that action. And then from there, you would put an actual word to it. So, I mean, that's a really simple and easy way to sort of encourage to get a sit out of a dog, or to show how the behaviors that you do want to achieve. So in the same idea of how to curb behaviors you don't want, I don't make a big deal or a big fuss about anything. The dog's not in trouble. They're learning. This is a puppy. They don't know the difference yet. You have to show them what's expected. So as opposed to rubbing the dog's nose in the pee or whatever it is, you would just pick, if they're in the mid pee even, I would, I mean, it depends on your level of comfort, but pick it up, put it outside, show them where it is that they're supposed to pee. Again, that's why if you're also anticipating, so as soon as they get up from, from playing, or 15 minutes after they've done eating or drinking or sleeping, whatever it is, you can expect, if your puppy has done something or not, they have to pee after it. Just anticipate that. So you want to be the one that leads them outside immediately after they get up, get them an opportunity to go pee outside. They just peed outside. Yes. Good, get busy. I mean, get busy is what I use, but good, whatever it is. Yeah, great job. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't treat in that instance because they eliminate naturally, and that's something that they will very quickly pick on up. But is that, oh, I just pee outside. This is how this works. I mean, that's we never had an issue with dogs peeing in the house, and that was how we did it. But again, that's just my perspective on the psychology aspect of it and how dogs learn.
So then what about even, let's go with even older dogs, because, and we're not here to necessarily get into this transition of pets, but you may come across that. I don't know, but older dogs that somebody could come and say, you know what, now this dog is giving me this, or you went to the pound. I don't know if it's called a pound, the Humane Society, whatever. Sorry, I'm really not the dog person here, but right, you went and you adopted a pet, and it's an older pet, or one that did have some trauma attached to, because it comes from the history that was dropped off at the pound, right? At the Humane Society, sorry, pound, whatever that's called. Anyway, that term probably comes from an old comic strip. I have no idea. Anyway, and it might have been an old whatever. But where do people, like, how much help can you give to a family that potentially goes down that path? It's not a new dog, right? It's not something that they've had in their family for long. It's not a purebred. It's not been treated in that same regard. So how much tending, how much care, what needs to happen in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start off by saying this whole concept of you can't teach an old dog new tricks is incredibly false.
Okay.
You can teach any dog at any age anything. It's completely possible. So whether your dog is new to you, if you've had your dog your entire life and something has come up, again, you can train your dog to do anything. It's showing them what's expected. It's teaching them what it is that you're looking to achieve. So if you have got, let's say you went to the Humane Society, picked up a rescue dog, whatever the case may be, bring this dog home. Absolutely, it might have had trauma. It might have had previous lives. Its old life could have been absolutely fantastic. And for whatever reason, that individual had to give the dog up. I mean, in some instances, you might get a bit of a background or a story. In other instances, you can't. It's us humans who create the stories, who have guilt, who worry. Dogs live in the moment. So if you had a dog that lived a traumatic life or whatever, if things were upsetting, or if they were a street dog beforehand and you bring them home, you need to let go of whatever that dog's story is. You have now given this dog a new opportunity in a new home with a new owner. You're going to make the effort to give this dog the best life it can, because, why else did you get a dog?
Thank you.
So what, yeah, I mean, what people really need to do is let go of old trauma or old worries, or even what happened at the dog park yesterday. As much as your dog might get, one thing after another comes up here, right? And they're ready to boil over, you have the ability to create positives, to do the right thing for your dog, to show them what's expected of them, to bring them and level and balance them back out. So just like, quite literally in the same way that you work on yourself, in many different ways, well, different, I guess, but you have the ability to balance your dog out and simply show them what's expected in your home. It might be different, in the same way that at your house, it might be different than how things function in my house. So if I gave you Kipper, you might say, these rules and these things are allowed. She has to abide by those.
Mhm.
So trauma and all of those issues that dogs and labels, we label the dogs. So even with breeds, I talked about it earlier. I mean, poodles are typically a higher energy. They're very loyal. But we put these labels on dogs and give ourselves excuses. This dog is a hound, therefore it can never be off leash. It will never learn certain things. You just wash your hands of it, and I've got my excuse, and that's what I hide behind. But no, any dog, any age, any background, anything can be trained, taught, trusted, and you just have to show them the way.
So the pet, like we're talking about, is mirroring that human, because we all have that capacity to do it as well. But part of what the piece is, dogs don't hold that story the same way.
That's right.
Where and again, unless we've said, yes, my dog holds that story because there's somebody that's proven it, and now we want to hold that story or whatever else. Because again, it goes back to, I know in the past, people I know that, oh, well, the dog had trauma and this happens and this happens and this happens. Every time this happens, this happens. Well, when we continue to say that story, we continue to create that reality, right? We continue to create it. That pet feels our vibration, feels that energetic resonance to, okay, every time I'm supposed to go past or over that vent down the hallway of that particular room, that's my trigger, right? And we as humans are continuing to catapult that reality on their behalf.
Absolutely.
Those, again, I mean, many people in all of the times that I've spent through these interviews, is there's these aspects that are starting to help people open up to these quantum realities that we're speaking of, which is, you're absolutely right. That is somebody's belief system, right? That does not have to be your belief system. And until you try, and I'm going to use try, until you're willing to give it some time, to see if that's really your reality. But that comes from a big look in the mirror at yourself to say, hey, what is that? What's causing inside of me that the dog's teaching me? Because we all hear about dogs that go into, and you alluded to it earlier, go into hospitals or nursing homes, and they help, and they take on, pets take on the pain of someone that's dying. We've heard all of those stories. We're often forgetting the dogs are they're literally mirroring our everyday moment, everyday life. So when we think about, oh, Fido was left home for 8 hours, now, not the same. Fido's in the house with me for 8 hours and used to be alone for 8 hours. I used to love it. And isn't there that movie, the pet movie or something, that it was like, there was a Disney movie years ago about the pets at home.
Life?
Maybe that's what it is. The dogs that were at home and all these different, and it's like, it's probably that, right? Like, there's part of that. It's like, I had my freedom and now I don't, right? So when we forget conscious petting, conscious parenting, conscious relating, conscious living, consciousness, awareness around, that's a relationship as well. And something that you actually made a choice. You perhaps were someone that chose to use it as an excuse to not deal with the other it.
That is quite common, I would say.
But
You
I mean,
are
that's
you're
what we're talking about here, really, right?
you are bang on in the sense that yeah, I mean they do. We're the ones holding on to this story or the trauma or the whatever it is that the dog came with, and we're the ones that are that are nervous about it. I mean, I'll give you a quick sort of example. So let's say you've got a dog. I mean, your dog's well behaved. There's one day where your dog gets lunged at and bitten at this particular corner. It's you not letting, so every time you walk past that corner, you're now nervous. You as the person are now nervous. You might tighten up on the leash. If there's a dog that lives there, it might come out and bite us. You are literally sending that energy down your leash to your dog to say, oh, okay, we're afraid. There's a dog that might come out and bite us. And in the dog's mind, somebody in this situation needs to be in control. Now, typically for a dog, and it does depend, your dog's going to react differently depending on whether or not they're naturally an alpha, naturally a middle of the pack, or if they're, like the runt of the litter. Anyway, so they'll react differently in their fight or flight response. But your dog is then, if you're afraid, they feel the need to someone has to be in that alpha role, so they step into it. And now your dog is leading the charge with the concept that you are terrified. There's a reason to be afraid of this, and there's something bad's going to happen. And you are creating this entire whirlwind of energy between you and the dog and what's happening. And that's how you get, dogs are not bad dogs. They're just put in a situation where they don't have the tools to cope necessarily. So if you've got, a back of the pack dog that you're forced to be an alpha, they don't know what to do.
And I'm gonna just clear one thing up, because I have family who will watch this, and for that person that's been bit in the past, there's been conversation around what part of it was yours, what part of it potentially was the owner, and by no means do I discount the fact, and this goes for anyone, that do you need to report that as part of a, as a bylaw, as a duty to society? Yes, you'd make those choices, right? You need to make those choices. And this is not going to get into that discussion. That's not really what this is about. I just want people to be aware there's so many levels. And again, when we can sit potentially, what of that was mine? What am I still hanging on to? Does that pattern repeat itself? Again, like you said, how many times do I go out and the dogs want to? Well, yeah, I forget. I don't ignore the human, but they're the last one, when in fact they should be the first one, right? Yes. You don't go over to Billy's house and be like, ignore the mom and just barrel in. Well, maybe they do, but right.
It depends on.
But now we don't, people. Now we consciously live our life. But yes, it's exactly.
But imagine if everyone was like polite and full of manners, and they went to Billy's mom first, and they went to the owner first, and what a world we would live in if people just
Okay. Wow. Well, this has been amazing. And I mean, there's so much more I'm sure we could talk about, but I think it's really to say thank you. Like, thank you. And I hope this really opened the eyes to people, because dog walking, it is a profession that has a very, it's its own finesse for humans, right? And because you are out there in the public doing this thing, and when people don't understand that, or they do see some of these scenarios that we've talked about, they're often thinking it's you, right? Or we think it's the person, and a lot of those things are, but it's to say, what are we, the individual, also bringing to that?
Yes.
To that area, right? If you walk through a dog park where they're playing and you've got this energy in you that's like, dogs should not be off leash, and why would they ever walk over my path, whatever. Well, you don't think they're all not going to come at you and say, come on, of course we can, right? I'm going to leave it there because I can get very passionate about things, most things, once I get into it. But thank you so much. And for those of us who, for those of you that are watching and are going to take advantage of the collection of at-home solutions, I think this particular one is so an interesting piece, like I've said, and it'll be in that entire collection. If it's not for you and you do know someone, you might share this information so they can access it as well. Brooke is going to share a beautiful exercise to help people to really hone in on, you know what, whether that's yours or to use it for another pet that comes across. We've spoke of dogs. Cats kind of have a little bit of a different scenario, yet in the same token, they are still part of this energetics. And when you can look at it from that framework, just as a simplicity, at least it's an opening there. So thank you, dog whisperer, dog walker extraordinaire. And
Thank you,
your
Donna.
pack leader, who we didn't really catch, but we'll make sure that we add Kipper's photo into the collection, so everyone gets a beautiful aspect of Kipper and what she brings.
Yes, I'll offer you a picture that's something cuter as opposed to her passed out in an odd shaped ball.
That's okay. That's okay. She's waiting for some human love. Anyway, thank you again. I appreciate it so much. And for those of you, we will see you again soon. Take care.